The proof is in the profit.
Now it doesn't work because we're not making money on the front, or it doesn't work because we're not making money.
Buying cars is an emotional experience.
Buying cars has nothing to do with buying cars.
There's a lot of fear that sellers have.
Then why don't you treat your business exactly the same?
It starts out, the interaction actually starts out in a very uncomfortable space.
It shouldn't be your forefront strategy, right? Because you're not good enough to make it a forefront strategy. You have to crawl, walk, run.
Are you wasting your time and money on inefficiencies in the business? Are sales down and lead conversion rates are low? Are you having problems building or maintaining inventory levels? What does it really take to win in the automotive industry?
Get the cars that make sense for your store rather than just wishing at an auction. So it gives you that better control.
With over 25 years of experience, Darrell the Wolf Steed isn't just another industry voice. He's the guy who's out there solving real problems for dealers just like you.
They'll even say in the Pacific Northwest where you're at that it's a tougher market. It's, it's tougher to find cars. The market's a little bit softer. And in the midst of all this, your turn doubled and your profit's up 75%.
Yes.
The truth hurts only when it should. Are you ready to hear the truths? Darrell is here to unpack the hard truths and the proven strategies that will take your dealership from struggling to soaring. And he is taking it all in the streets, with real talk, open dialogue, unfiltered conversations. This is the podcast series, Street Smarts, powered by SmartWolf Consulting.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Street Smarts, powered by SmartWolf Consulting. My name is Darrell Steed. And today we are going to do something a little different, guys. We brought a guest on to give you guys a little glimpse of used car acquisition and some best practices. He has been in the industry for quite some time, navigating different things, going different ways, and kind of figuring out how to be successful. So with no further ado, let's welcome David Stein from Highroad X, to the show. David, thank you so much for joining us, and really appreciate it. And as we ask every guest, as we start every episode of Street Smarts, where are you winning in life?
Great to meet with you, Darrell. I really appreciate being on this show and on the podcast, and excited to talk about street purchasing. I would say in the areas I'm winning in life the most right now is in the relationships I have with my kids. I have 5 kids, 20, 17, 16, 12, and 9, and girl, boy, girl. And learning as I have more and more teenagers, it creates a lot. I have to be very emotionally regulated, understanding and supportive. And it's been really, really helpful. Building trusting, connected relationships with my children has been absolutely where I'm killing it.
That's fantastic. I think we have to stop for a minute. And do we believe he has 5 kids? I mean, he does not look old enough to have 1 kid, but now he's saying he has a 20-year-old. I'm going to be 100% honest, okay? We might actually have to get him to put his driver's license up to the screen to verify personal identity. That's fantastic. And I also don't believe him because he said girl, boy, girl, and he still has hair. I do not believe that this is I can't say no to my 3 boys, but 4 girls, that's a wrap. There'd be no hair on this head for sure.
I am good at holding space for feelings.
That's fantastic. I think everybody that comes on the show, learning where they're winning in life is just really great because, we always give a lot of time to our careers and being successful there because in order to be successful in a high impact area market, it does take a lot of time, a lot of a commitment to it. But, the important things are those things that really keep us grounded and keep us where we're at. And family, for most people, I know for myself and obviously for you, is a big contributor so that we know what we're actually working for, right? Everybody, I think, assumes it's for the money. Like we want to make some rags to riches story or something of that nature. And rarely have I found somebody that it's just about the money. It may start out about money, but it rarely stays that way. And it's typically about how you can provide and help the people that are important to you. So that's fantastic that you're doing so successful with your kids, because that's what keeps us young. That's what keeps us, going.
That's right.
Now let's spend a few minutes and let's just talk about used car acquisition. It's I'm 14 years into this, and I find it very interesting that buy centers and acquisition or private party or whatever people want to call it has now become the buzzword for the last 2 years. And it's like the cool thing to do. It's like, ooh, I'm going to get myself a buy center and I'm going to do acquisition.
Easier said than done, Darrell.
Yeah, easier said than done for sure. But it has become a buzzword because people run out of solutions with other ideas or they are not as effective. So kind of give us an idea of where you started and kind of your matriculation in the acquisition.
Okay. So my origins are from CarMax from 2007 to 2012. Then I went into the private markets. I owe CarMax a lot. I'm very grateful to what I learned from them and just the culture of daily practice and understanding how to buy a vehicle. I got taught by a $15 billion company how to be a buyer. When I left CarMax, I went into the private markets. I was a used vehicle director for 3 rooftops. And the highlight there is I was doing 150 flights a year. I was an auction buyer. I was going to Orlando, Nashville, Dallas, Phoenix, Vegas every single week. I was on more flights than I care to even count on. I know you have a lot of experience too, traveling, and a lot of other traveling buyers out there. Sometimes we wake up in our same hotel and we forget what city we're in, and it was a lot of work. And while that was happening, we got the alpha stores early on to the KBB ICOs, and that flipped a switch for me. I saw the massive opportunity. This was like 2016, 2017 for street acquisitions. As I started to see the profitability in street acquisitions, I partnered with a buddy of mine who does coding to be able to track all private party sellers across the nation. We started aggregating that data and selling that data and helping dealers buy and acquire vehicles. But the reality is I say it's easier said than done when building a buy center because it really has to be from the top down approach into this market. It doesn't follow the same guidelines or the same sandbox boundaries as selling vehicles. So buying vehicles, I guess, in regards to street purchasing, there's just a huge market there. But what we're finding in buy centers, a lot of the opportunities or the struggles or the obstacles that the dealership faces are obstacles and frustrations that they've created for themselves. And one of the things that really changes when a dealership opens itself to a buy center is not just the gradual adoption to a more progressive way of doing business that creates a better customer experience, but also there's a unification that happens inside of the car dealership, where when it's time to buy a vehicle from a seller and we want to pay them on the spot, we got to get that vehicle checked, a stock number, a check cut, a check signed. The business office isn't necessarily used to having to stop what they're doing to stock in a vehicle. It kind of just goes in line in the process that they have. So to stop what they're doing, stock in a vehicle, get a check cut, you got to have the buy-in from the business office. While that's happening, we're looking at the vehicle. I'm going to the service drive, service manager or the used car tech saying, hey, stop what you're doing. Let's throw this up on the lift real quick. We got like 20 minutes, guys, here. Let's get on a test drive. Check it out for me. So we have to be unified and we have to be on the same page and really have the buy-in from the service department as well, that we're just kind of interrupting their flow. And so it's really important that everybody's bought in. And I think when we look at how do we get buy-in from everybody like that, I like to say that the proof is in the profit, that when you buy the vehicle like that and you watch how that vehicle performs in parts and service and sales and finance, it becomes obvious that everyone wants to stop what they're doing. I've seen a lot of controllers move from a position of like, okay, we'll try 1 or 2 and track it, to get out of the way. If someone's got a car, they're buying a car off the street, we're going to get that thing done right away because they're seeing it on the books. They're seeing the profit in those vehicles. So it's a really wonderful thing to see dealerships come together and unify all of these departments through the acquisition of the most profitable thing that can enter into their vehicle dealer, in their inventory, in my judgment.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting when you think about that, right? As you track it, what I've seen quite a bit, right? Just over the years, right? Starting in 2010 and now being 2014 is that with acquisition strategies, right? We can say buy center, private party, service drive, trades, things of that nature. But we're like, okay, we want to make profit, we want to do this, and we kind of get stuck though in this kind of conundrum of, well, now it doesn't work because we're not making money on the front, or it doesn't work because we're not making money. There's the used car acquisition strategy. If you're using it when you first started, I should say, not using it long term, but when you first started, it should be looked at like nothing but incremental business. It shouldn't be your forefront strategy, right? Because you're not good enough to make it a forefront strategy. You have to crawl, walk, run. And when you think about that, I always use this analogy, and I'd love to get your insight on this, because every time I say it to a dealer, they agree, but then their business model and the way they run their business is counterproductive or is hypocritical to the statement is, I have 100 cars. You have to say yes or no to all of them. You can't cherry pick them, but this is how it's going to work. You're going to make zero money on the front. You're going to make 1,000 in the fixed operations, and you're going to make 1,500 to 2,000 on the back. Do you want all of them?
5% chance for a trade?
And they say, oh, I want all of them. And I'm like, okay, so I don't understand. If you want all of those and you understand what you're getting into, then why don't you treat your business exactly the same? Oh, we can't possibly do that. Well, I can tell you, building one of the largest buying centers and then eventually became the largest buying center in the country, that's exactly what the store did. They didn't care about the front end profit. I think they averaged at best $300 or $400. But when you do it 350 times a month, that's still $1.2 million when you're averaging 3,500 a copy. So when you buy these cars, we won't even get into the trade efficiency that can come from it, right? Because that muddies the waters. Assume you don't get one trade-in from this, which obviously would be impossible. But if you only had these cars and you're not going to get any of the trades, I buy you 300 cars, you make zero on the front, you make 1,000 over here, and you make 2,000 over here, you make 3,500 times, and you sell them. That's $900,000 you didn't have before you started this. Okay, now let's go one further.
And
you're going to pay 50% of that out in tools, comp, and everything else. Okay, fine. Let's go even down that road. That's still $450,000 that you did not have when you woke up this morning. I don't understand why we're trying to overcomplicate the math here.
And it's not just that's great that profitability. Even if they're just cars you wouldn't have otherwise had and they're making us money, doesn't have to be so complicated. Additionally, when we look at where the money's being spent, I'm not spending the money at the auction house, giving it to other dealers. This is money that I'm porting back into the community, into my neighborhood, into my DMA. And so what happens is, how many vehicles did I buy? How much did I actually spend? I bought a vehicle from a guy for 30 grand. I got a vehicle for 60 grand. You know, I've spent $100,000 inside of this neighborhood in the last 60 days. That's something that can be marketed, that can be advertised, that when you're buying vehicles from private sellers, there can be a page on your site that says, here's how much money we have given back in buying vehicles without having you guys have to buy one of ours inside of this community. And it builds massive brand, massive reputation, and you can compete with the big guys.
Yeah, but so it's interesting you bring that up, right? Because typically when I'm helping buying centers and best practices, right, you get the foundation going, right? You make sure that they know what they're doing. You're buying the cars, but you bring up a really, really good point of like the advertising side of it, right? Because people always ask me, why am I better than most people out there, right? Like, why am I considered the best? And I tell them it's very simple.
Darrell.
Well, I show people, so I'll go in there and show you, right? Like, I'm not going to just tell you how to do it, but more importantly is I'll build you a brand. Because just buying cars, you just say, hey, we buy cars. Well, let's get real. Every store's been saying that stupid shit for about 60 years. And they put a sign on the back of their building saying, we buy cars. And then and so, but when you think about like, if you say, so I was just on this free training that Van had for their dealers.
Oh, cool. I heard about that. How did that go?
And they were talking about what's the most interesting car. And so they asked me, and I said, it was interesting because I was like, I don't know if I bought anything interesting, but we had an interesting day. The same day we bought a 1992 Ford Escort. This thing was beat to hell. It was like a $200 car. Why we're doing the paperwork on that, we're buying a GT3 911. And so you got a $500 car and a $225,000 car. So what I explained to him why this was interesting was we immediately, because again, the marketing side of me, they're like building a brand, was we parked them right next to each other, took pictures of them and said, whether you can drive it in or race it in, we buy everything. And then we put that out on social media, right? Because that was part of the like engagement of it. And it's funny to me when we buy cars, we don't look at the acquisition side is a way to drive traffic. We think it's, oh, we got a car, so we will drive traffic from that vehicle, but we don't look at it as like, how do we drive traffic from the transaction? Why don't we treat this like a brand itself?
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to private party is, and it goes the same thing with sales. If you sell someone a car, you take a picture of them, you share it with them, right? Everyone wants to see themselves in the lights, right? Like everybody wants their 15 minutes of fame. It's the same thing when they sell a car. Everybody wants to be celebrated. Like, yeah, I got a great deal. Like I got over it. Like I did this. And it's like, why are we not doing that as well? Like, why isn't the marketing side of it just as important as everything else? And I'd love to hear what you think when I say this next statement, because it's how I do a lot of my training, my fundamentals.
Okay.
Is they go in and they say, well, Darrell, what are you going to do for us? And I just go, guys, you guys want to buy more cars? They're like, yep, that's what we want to do. And I said, okay, well, I need you guys to understand one fundamental before we get started. Buying cars has nothing to do with buying cars. And they're like, we don't understand. And we said, that's why I'm here. See, buying the car and doing the paperwork, I can train any monkey off the street to do that. Like it's really not that difficult. It's a couple pieces of paper, a couple signatures, and you're good. It's the follow-up, the personality, the value building, the why sell to me, the marketing, the branding, the reviews, the testimonials, because that's how you make sure it works more than the first month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I'd love to kind of see what you like, how you look at that and how you look at the acquisition space from that side.
Okay, cool. It's a great question. Actually, I would say that the acquisition space, when it comes to building a buy center, is understanding that buying cars is not buying cars. Is that what I heard you say, Darrell? Buying
cars has nothing to do with buying cars.
Buying cars has nothing to do with buying cars. And I'll give you my spin on that. I wholeheartedly agree with that statement, by the way. I back that. For me, buying cars is not buying cars. Buying cars is an emotional experience. And what's important that we do and understand is that the seller is going to have an emotional experience. The best way we can do to hold a safe space for their emotions around selling their vehicle, the better we're going to do at building trust and being able to create a safe, easy, and convenient way for them to do it. A lot of times when they go to sell their vehicle and they take photos and they put in a description, every site they go to do that is warning them of spammers and scammers and be careful. And there's so much fear, and rightfully so. It's a dangerous market. You know, people are dealing with a lot of money and payoffs and titles, different things. A lot can go wrong. And so there's a lot of fear that sellers have. And so a lot of times we interact with that fear. And oftentimes that fear shows itself most strongly when we make our initial offers. And so, so when we make an offer, that's normally where they're like, oh, no way, say no, have some negative reaction. So the ability of the buyer to understand that rejection is a part of buying vehicles, that we have to get rejected by the seller. They have to tell us, I'll never sell my car for that much. You're something along those lines. That's how we start to say, okay, I hear what you're saying, but tell me more. Knowing where my budget is, how close can you get to my offer? And that creates the negotiation. But we have to create an uncomfortable, oftentimes a negative response from the seller by them kind of rejecting our offer. And so it's an emotional experience. It's different than like they want the vehicle and we're just kind of, giving them a test drive, showing them the car, showing them how easy it is to get those payments. This is a little different. They want a lot of money. We're trying to buy it for X. And oftentimes that number is, oftentimes 20% can be even more from where they're originally starting. So the interaction actually starts out in a very uncomfortable space. And our ability to hold space in there and to create a positive outcome by understanding the psychology and the emotions around what's happening, then we can actually build a lot of trust. And to the point where they start to realize, like, they don't want to talk to other people. Even other sellers are offering them more. It's just so easy to go with you. It's $500 more, but it just doesn't seem like it's worth it. And so that's that's why buying cars is not like buying cars. It's totally.
Since you brought that up, I think that's a great segue to talk about some best practices, right? Is we do know that when you're buying a car, right, trade-ins, buying, service, it doesn't much matter,
Yeah.
right? Is that there is an emotional connection to that vehicle of some kind, and some can be deeper than others. And there is a lot of psychological pathways in that. And if you don't study the psychological parts of that in the human brain and understanding interactions and spending dynamics and what money does, then I think you're already behind the eight ball. But let's talk about best practices. How do you think, or how can a dealer institute some best practices? Is how do you create the emotional disconnection, or how do you reduce the anxiety that the situation naturally brings to the table?
Okay, here we go. And I'll do a little. I love pro tips, and I love talking about best practices. It's my absolute favorite, and I'm curious to know what you and the community thinks about what I'm about to say. I'm going to share something here.
Okay.
All right, here we go. So I want to give an example of what it's like to create the experience, an emotional experience for the seller. This is if you have the VIN number for the vehicle. And I'm going to go through, I'm just going to read it out, and then I'm going to show you the psychology around this opening. And this is if you have the VIN for the vehicle and you were able to appraise it and you could get to a market-based number. And it's your first initial contact. Here's how it goes. I love this 4Runner. I especially love the color. How do you feel about $28,000? I can buy it today and have the money available. Hopefully, a quick sale makes a lower offer acceptable. Respectfully, David. So at first, it seems like it looks like as though I'm making an offer on the vehicle. What's really important to note is that in the opener, I love this 4Runner. I especially love the color. The purpose of this is to express to the seller that you're real. You're not a bot. You're not a spammer. You're a real person, and you're showing them a high level of emotion. We're creating an emotional connection to the seller who wants to sell their vehicle to someone who really wants it. And so I'm telling him I love this 4Runner, and I especially love the wheels, the color, whatever it is. Now I go directly into my offer. We're going to bring them down into an emotional reaction. How do you feel about $28,000? Now this is basically the number doesn't actually matter. The important thing is that it creates a no. That if you offer an amount of money and the seller says sure, oftentimes they're not serious about selling their vehicle, or there's something you don't know. So the idea is, what's the lowest number I can offer that they don't ignore me, but they reject the number? And that is really important. It creates, we're going to find out their need to sell the vehicle. And then also it starts the negotiation. When we offer a number, because the number they're asking, let's say, is $35,000 and we're $7,000 away, maybe I can pay $30,000. So I need them to discount the vehicle by $5,000. So I can't just say $5,000, I'm all in, because it's not fair to them having to come down $5,000. So what I do is I offer $28,000, asking them to come down $7,000, which is going to cause them to say, I'm not going to do that. What can you do? And we try to find where we can get them to drop a couple of times. So the first one is to anchor our offers. They have an offer of $35,000, which we're saying no to. We're saying no to that offer by offering $28,000, which they're going to say no to. Now that we're anchored on opposite ends, we can negotiate and find middle ground. So I've created that emotional response that they're going to say no to this number, but now I'm adding equity. I can buy it today and I have the money available. So that is strength. These are promises I'm making. And this is a dealership that's committed to cutting checks same day, or whatever it is that your equities are. It could be that I'll come to you. It could be I can help you with the payoff, other things, but I can buy it today. I have the money available, works really well. It's equity. And now I'm going to anchor that low offer into something that has no monetary value. I'm not offering $28,000 because of the bad Carfax or because of the market day supply or whatever. That takes a lot of education on to the seller. What I'm doing is I'm anchoring that offer into something that has no actual value. And it's a quick sale.
Hopefully a quick sale makes a lower offer acceptable. And then I say respectfully, because I'm assuming that they may feel disrespected by me asking them to discount their price by $7,000. So I say respectfully as to show, hey, I'm willing to work. So that's the psychology. And what's going to happen is the seller's going to say, no, I don't want to sell it. I can't do it. They're going to say something. And the point is not to then, and they may say that, sorry, I can't, or they may say some explicit word, screw yourself, that you're a lowballer. What I would never, ever, ever. But regardless of what they say, they responded. So response times are super key. As soon as we get that rejection, we show a lot of empathy. Hey, I completely understand where you're coming from. Knowing that $28,000 is closer to my budget, what would you be willing to do? Now 35 becomes something else. And it most likely becomes maybe 34, maybe 33, whatever it is. And I can say, all right, well, look, I really like the vehicle. This is what's going on. I had a little more room here. I can buy, and the negotiation can continue. And this is where we do the dealer disclosure, letting them know how safe and easy it is, using other equities, how easy it is to sell the vehicle. Like we can handle titles, payoffs. We don't mess anything up, that kind of thing. And so it can be a really positive experience, but we have to start with that negative emotional experience in our offer to create safety as we move through that process.
No, I think that's great. As I've said many of times from the response side of it, given the best practices, it really is about, I'm not overly concerned with when I say this, yes, the offer has to be somewhere in the realm of reasoning, right? Like it can't be so far off that it's offensive, but
yeah, that's right. We're not trying to offend, but we are trying to get a no.
When I send an offer, if I ever get a yes on a first offer, let's get real. Then we messed up and there's other things. So I'm looking to know, but the psychology also comes in for guys, as you guys are listening to this, is understanding if I send an offer, and whether it's the way that David just showed you or some of the things that I teach and train, is you should know what that response is. So when David sends that out, and I know David does, but as stores that are trying to tackle this and train people or develop people, when I send out a response, I already know the 3 responses I'm going to get. And there's never more than 2 or 3, because if you've put together the right message, you know exactly what's coming next. And if you don't, then you didn't ask the right question, because if I don't know what they're going to respond, I'm not prepared for the next conversation or the second thought. And I think that's very interesting to understand is, guys, when we get the no, it's okay. All we're doing is establishing what comes next, not even a value. Now, when I say, does that work for everyone? No. And I don't want everyone to think that that is the case, because for instance, let's use the most successful operation in the country when it comes to used cars, and that's CarMax. There is no negotiation with CarMax. It is a take it or leave it proposition. And so there is no psychology to let me have negotiation, everything else. Now, do I think that that's the best way? Do I think there's other ways? Of course, I think that there's plenty of other ways to do it, but I actually believe the reasoning they are able to do the take it or leave it offer is they have established such a brand presence of trust that people have now just come to believe that if that's the value, that it is going to be near impossible to obtain more. So give them kudos for 30 years of branding themselves as a trusted resource to where people don't sit there and have any reason to doubt them. Now,
I would also add that CarMax creates a very clear and transparent way to do business so that the seller is told this is what you can expect is going to happen. And when they show up, what they were told is going to happen is what happens. And I think CarMax delivers on that and executes on that so well that oftentimes people will take less, knowing I'm selling the CarMax. I know I can get more, but I'm okay because it's just so easy.
Non-threatening. Sure.
Yeah, it's so non-threatening, and it's and they do such a good job there.
Now, to finish that, guys, is I want everyone to understand. So I talk a lot about CarMax because they do a lot of things right. Now, Every buying center that I've built over the last 14 years or helped when I was with ICO, I show them how to go hand in hand, go right into the ring with CarMax and win. And there's a couple things you can do, but most importantly, as dealers, you have to acknowledge whether you like it or not. So if you don't like it, okay, wrap your head around my trademark phrase, which is the truth hurts only when it should. So this might hurt as I say it, is you are not trusted. You are not a trusted resource. Even the really good stores, the really good ones, the ones that are dialed in, like you've done it right, you're not trusted either the way you think you are because of the bad stores. Because it only takes one jamoke in the muck to sit there and make everyone else look like they're bad. Yeah. And so if you understand that from the societal view, which is movies, newscasts, whatever they see on YouTube and social media, is if you're not a trusted resource, right? What do you do to combat that? So the first thing I tell every store is, and I see this all the time, it's fine, but it's not, is it's kind of one of those ego feeds, is they want a buying center and they want to make it let's just say it's a John Smith Motors, right? And they're like, well, we want to be the John Smith Buying Center. Isn't your name on enough? Like, isn't your name everywhere it should be? Like, why does your name need to be on this too? Like, in all fairness, guys, you need to think about branding it something that has nothing to do with you so that you can establish a presence of trust and relationship outside of the automotive side. So, for instance, I have some stores that have now been piloting. They have done the academy, which is Street Smarts Academy, and they're actually going to use this name. So we are doing some things. And it's going to be the Street Smarts Buying Center. Why? Because it has nothing to do with your store. It is completely third party. It is completely validated based on the fact it has nothing to do with you, right? Well, when you think about that, is when someone sees that, it has intrigue, it has brand, it has this. And I'm not saying use this. I'm just saying you create it. When they see John Smith Buying Center and they're like, oh, and that's John Smith's, Chevrolet, they're like, oh, so they just give out, they immediately associate you with the store. So you have to think about, in way of best practices, what do you do to disestablish yourself from the sales mecca that is what consumers think of the long drawn out buying a car. It's difficult. It's never what we say it is. The trade values are never great. Like, these are all preconceived notions that, unfortunately, guys, you're not going to change because these were all established so well in the 70s and 80s. We can't even get people to stop thinking about them.
That's a great idea, Darrell. I was actually talking to a dealer in the Rocky Mountain region just recently, and their executive team wants to create a buy center, but doesn't want it affiliated to their store, and they weren't sure how to go about creating and rebranding and doing that. And so I like what I'm hearing you say, and it sounds like it may be a good conversation for you to have with them.
Yep. It's Street Smarts. It's the smarter way to sell your car, but that's a shameless plug. But back onto the topic is, when you think about it, though, guys, you could even do small things, right? Let's say you do want to have your name on it because you're just like, you know what? I like to see my name on everything that I'm a part of. Okay, cool. Let's go down this road. Okay, if that's the case, because it's easier, which it is, right? Because it takes nothing, right? You just slap your name on the word buying center and you're good, right? Is what do you do in your store to ensure that you have at least done everything you can outside of the name to establish a different brand? For instance, if none of you guys have ever been there, and any dealers or operators that are watching this, have you ever been in one of these really massive Toyota stores that has an enterprise counter inside of it? They exist. I've been in 4 of them. And I mean, they're so massive that enterprise has its own counter inside the store.
No fun.
And so when you think about that, is like, okay, when I walk in your store, where's the buying center? Is it immediately can I see it the moment I walk in? Mm-hmm. Is there trackways to it? More importantly, do they wear different uniforms? Can they be identified everywhere on the lot?
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is, if they're truly buyers and they're the acquisition team and they truly have nothing to do with sales, what are you doing to ensure that that experience is completely removed from the sales experience so the customer can feel that they're not going to be sold when they come in there? They're only going to be serviced.
Yeah. Can I give a pro tip around that one, Darrell?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Here's a pro tip to help sellers
feel like they're moving into a just being able to sell their vehicle and not feel like they're going to have buy one. And that's this. When you're talking to the private seller before they enter onto your dealership, oftentimes you'll say, why don't you just Google my dealership and look it up and call the store just to make sure that this is all on the up and up. Ask, hey, does David buy cars for ABC Motors? And see what they say. And the script that the receptionist has is when anyone calls the store and asks for David Stein, who the buyer, whoever it is, Darrell Steed or your team, whatever, whoever the buyer is, the receptionist, instead of saying, oh, hold on a second, let me transfer you, anytime they hear the name, you buy for this person, their response is, oh, you're talking to David? Congratulations. It sounds like you're considering selling your vehicle. I know that can be pretty stressful, and we want to make sure that it's really easy and convenient. Was this just a verification call, or did you have a question for him you'd like me to transfer you? And oftentimes the seller's like, no. I was just making sure that it was like, this was all legit. And when they hang up the phone now, any communication we have with them, they'll send us the title. They're taking pictures of their driver's license. They're sending us all the data that we need really, really quickly. It's like the trust is built right then and there. And it's so it's really having everybody in the store has a role. The receptionist role has a very clear role when it comes to buying cars and the way she talks or he talks about it. The salesperson, the way he or she talks about it, like you said, like everywhere, like do they wear different uniforms? It's like it's branded as its own entity or its own separate thing. It's treated differently, and it builds a lot of momentum that way.
And I'm glad that you said that, because like when you talk about that validation, now using the receptionist, guys, that's actually a really powerful tool, right? If done correctly, right? And I would go one further, right? And we see a lot of this on sites now. It was a big fad before, and now we've seen it kind of go away. Is have a splash page, right, for your buying center, or have like a page where they're that, but have their own staff and own the. If you start throwing them in the staff page on a dealership, again, you got to remember all these blocks that people have about automobile dealers. They're going to be like, oh, they're part of the team. Oh, they're doing that. No, when they have their own splash page, which costs you like nothing. And then you put some pictures on there and a quick bio, which, guys, I'm a knuckle dragger. Like me building a website would be the worst thing in the world. And I could build a splash page for a buying center in about 2 hours. It's that simple, because it's literally a landing page, just so, like he said, verification. For instance, when I opened my business, I was doing consulting by referral only. Okay. If you had to call me, I never went and chased any business. Actually, to this day, I've probably made 3 phone calls that weren't referral based. But then someone said, like, well, Darrell, you don't have a website. And I'm like, well, why do I need a website? Everything's referral based. Like, why do I need like that? And so it even got to that, is people wanted a website, which I now have. I have 2, is so they could go see, like, is this person real? Is there results? Is there this? People want to be able to see that. And so if you're not thinking about how the customer perceives it, then you actually are not looking to do business. You're saying you want to do business, but you're not actually showing the customer that you're in business.
This is the question. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead. So I love the fact you say the receptionist, because validation isn't just the values. Validation can be seen in every piece of what we do. And it's actually why buying centers exist, because you did such a terrible job in your trade process of validation that the buying center was born.
Well, I would say this, the question to encapsulate what I thought I heard you say, as far as the process for buying the vehicle, if I encapsulate that into one question, I would say this: from the moment a seller says, yes, I will sell my car to you, how long does it take to get them paid? How long does it take? How quick, easy, and convenient is it for us to process a vehicle through our system so that it's finalized, the title signed, the vehicle customer's paid, we're waving goodbye? Can we have that done from the moment they say yes and they say, I'll come in tomorrow, can we do it? If they say yes, I'll be there in 4 hours, can we do it? If they say yes, I'm down the street, can we do it? What is the answer? What does the timeline take? And once we start to look
and try to solve for that question. How long does it take? We start to find, oh, we have a hiccup in how long it takes to stock in the vehicle. We have a hiccup in how long it takes to get the check cutter signed. We have a hiccup in how long it takes to get the vehicle through the shop or inspected, whatever the process is. We start to realize where we are creating our own problems. And so once we start to do things like cut positive equity checks, go to the seller and meet them where they want to be met, and do things like that, another pro tip for anyone that's way progressive and wants to think way outside the box here, that you would have a separate purchasing account, a checking account that has no money in it. But that checkbook is given to your primary buyer, purchasing manager, used car manager, and he has single signature check signing abilities. And he can go anywhere with his checkbook and he can buy cars. He can go to the car wash, pop up a tent, and he can be like, I'm cutting checks right now, I'm buying cars. And the rule is, before he gives a check to a seller, he has a picture of the check, a picture of the purchase order, a picture of the driver, whatever it is, and he forwards it to the accountant or the CFO, and all they do is transfer the money, make sure the money clears. But they can actually, write checks. And so you have a stopgap there where, there's a lot of, there can be a lot of trust, but also a lot of protection. But the reality is we can just start buying cars, and your buyers are out there. They're at restaurants, they're at ball games, or wherever they are, to be able to say, yeah, I'm a buyer for X, Y, and Z. I can put an offer in car right now. If you want to sell me your car, I'll buy it. Gives buyers a lot of confidence. And it creates a lot of awareness in the community as what we're capable of doing. But behind the scenes, it can be pretty protected. So another thing to consider.
I agree with you. That gets gatekeeped pretty strongly when you talk about that. But if you're going to be progressive, I'll go one further. I can buy a car
in 5 minutes. Is how
I have a store that's doing it right now. I got one store that wanted to pilot this, so they are actually doing it for one of their sources. Is if you're going to give a check and you're going to trust people with that. I know this sounds crazy and you're like, oh my gosh, we'd never do this, but you do it all the time with the auction. So just think of it like that. Because you ACH it is, why do you not have the ability to Zelle or Venmo customers? Why do you not have the ability to do an instant transfer right now? And the answer is going to be is because there's no protection to it. Actually, there's a lot of
transaction costs.
The transaction cost of Zelle is zero. Absolutely zero. And it's directly from your bank, and it's verified based on phone number and email. And it's just like doing a wire transfer. It is literally almost identical. So if you have all the paperwork, and I'm not saying that this is going to be like adapted to quickly, but we've seen some stores start doing this. Why is, again, what are you doing that makes it faster? Now, I can only tell you what I can do. So you asked that question of how long does it take? When I come in and I build a buying center, an acquisition strategy, whatever you were doing for you, because there's a couple different iterations of what I do, is from the private party acquisition, ICO leads, any of that type of stuff, from the time they shake your hand and agree, that person will have a check in less than 15 minutes.
Yes.
And the reason that we look at that is...
That's powerful.
And the reason we do that is real simple. If I can't come in, have an inspection done, have some negotiations of some kind, and get a check on my lunch hour, then you are not prioritizing my time over yours.
That's right.
And I keep it as simple as that is from start to finish, inspection to payment, I can get you done in your lunch break.
Yeah.
And when you start thinking about that and we do that 6 days a week, because Sunday I have not been able to bridge that gap with any stores having someone here in the office on a Sunday. I'm working on it, but I have not been able to win that battle. But when you start looking at like Monday through Saturday till 5 o'clock at night, right, that you can get a check within 15 minutes, all of a sudden people go like, it's not, you're taking the obstacles out of what it is. You're saying it's not as hard as we want to make it because you're actually removing the obstacles. Now, the other thing that you said that I think we have to at least address or give it more air to is when you say we find out what we do, like what we create ourselves, right? Like the obstacles we create. is I think it is one of those things. I heard it on Clubhouse today. Actually, I believe it might have been Ron Morrison.
Ron's good.
I might be wrong, but he said, all these dealers right now, and I'm experiencing this right now too, so it's hilarious. He's like, they don't really have a forecast, or they don't have something going on. And so what they'll do is say like, well, now I'm like, man, I'm out of cars, or I don't have cars. So they'll be reactive. And then they'll say, I want a buying center. I'm going to start a buying center. And they'll try to do it. And I use the word try because that word isn't actually mean anything. And then they'll do it for 30 days and say like, well, it didn't work. Well, of course it didn't work because you have no process, no strategy. And then they'll give up on it and say, yeah, buying centers don't work. And so I think it's very important to let people know we actually create our own dynamic of problems or speed bumps or roadblocks because it allows us to destruct, right? Well, it didn't work. Well, it didn't work because you put 6 roadblocks up before you even got started. We won't cut checks. We won't be open on the weekends. We won't do this. We won't do this. We won't do this. And I'm like, you've already said 6 things you won't do. Could we start with the things we will do and then figure out like how we take it? And so that's part of what I do is I'm going to remove roadblocks. I'm going to remove all the fears and chaos because at the end of the day, if you want to sell more cars, you never let anything get in your way. The good stores, anyway.
We could do, or I'd highly recommend a full podcast just talking about negative, positive equity checks when title's not in house. And I'd love to see people who are cutting positive equity checks and dealers that are like, I'll never do it, and just getting different, perhaps getting.
Yeah, and you know what? That might be great. Not just do a podcast, is have a roundtable of the ones that don't, the ones that do. Is it a fear, or is it this? Now, I will say this. I will say this about positive equity checks. So everybody thinks like when I say if you don't do that, you're going to fail. I'm not going to say you're going to fail.
You're just making it harder for yourself.
But no, so here's the thing that people do need to understand that I actually understand that most people don't when they talk about buying centers is there actually could be 2 or 3 reasons why they don't cut checks. And one of them comes down to liquidity. The other one comes down to flooring parameters. So that's the other thing you need to understand when building a buying center. If you don't have enough, the liquidity part of it is if I can't cut you a check because I don't have enough operating capital, because I don't have a good flooring exchange to where I can get it back on flooring quick enough, or I have to wait for title or all these things, then that can create a dynamic. But then you need to know that before you say you want to grow your company. You can't grow your company without knowing the parameters of what you can grow.
Right.
The ones that say they pay cash for all their inventory, well, then they should never be a conversation. The ones that have flooring constraints, like I have a store that has a flooring constraint where they can't floor anything that's under a 2021. Well, that means they have to pay cash for damn near every car we buy because the 2021s and above, those aren't the ones that we see that we're going after a lot, right? Because of affordability. So when you think about that is understanding when you're going to want to go after acquisition or build your used car department, what things in your store already limit you and how are you going to work around it? It's not saying you're going to fix those. Understand what you have and build the process to what you have rather than, we're going to go crazy and we're going to do this. If you can't do it, build what you can to get where you need to be and then slowly integrate to where you go. Everybody wants this pipe dream of buying 100, 200 cars a month and don't understand the moving pieces to buying 100 or 200 cars a month. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do.
You start by buying one and seeing what gets in our way once we make the deal. What's getting in the way of us being able to buy this faster and then address each one of those things up individually. And I think what we find is, like I said before, we create a lot of our own problems based on our fear of getting tricked by a private seller. Meanwhile, we're buying cars that were, done on CRs that can be iffy at best. And so we put our risk. We're okay to take so much risk in one area, but for a community member, a neighborhood, someone that lives in our area, we're so strict on making sure that we're not going to get tricked by them. And so I just think we just put more trust in them and make more aggressive offers. And in the end, it's to our benefit. We'll buy more cars and create better experiences.
I agree. Now, with knowing we've got a little bit of time left, but when we have people on, we want to know how they can help people, right? So, you were going to go into it, but let's give you a few minutes right here to talk about what is Highroad like. And I don't want to say what is Highroad, right? How does Highroad help is going to be able to help dealers in 2025 with both acquisition and the getting better or getting to where they want to be in the used car game?
Okay. Understanding how we solve problems for dealers is to understand what it is that we do. And the problem that we solve is that finding out what my vehicle was worth as a private seller, finding out what my vehicle is worth is a fragmented and painful process. I can go and get an offer here. I can get an offer there. It takes a lot of time to fill out a lot of information. There's varying numbers. There's 57,000 dealerships in the US that will most likely buy a vehicle. And yet most sellers can only name maybe 4 dealers that will do that. So there's a massive opportunity here to aggregate this fragmented space. So what we're finding is that when a seller wants to sell their vehicle, the first step they typically take is to get an instant cash offer. Before they post it online, before they write a description or anything like that, they go to find that out. So Highroad is an aggregator of instant cash offers. So we get a lot of sellers coming in because they want to see the range and the array of different dealers in their area and national providers and what they're willing to offer. What we want to do and what we're finding is that the instant cash offers are I shouldn't be too specific, but there's a lot of opportunity in the instant cash offers that come in where a dealer would pay more than the instant cash offer and still be feeling like they're getting a really good deal on the vehicle. And so we want to connect those sellers to those dealers. For example, as I understand it, and I could be wrong here, but CarMax is the 3rd largest auction house in the country. And they're not an auction house. They're, I don't know, maybe ACV might have taken a spot there. I'm not sure. I know they got a lot going on. But CarMax is a retail organization that happens to also wholesale cars because of all the cars they buy from the public that don't meet their standards. They're not going to the auction and buying vehicles to auction off. This just represents cars that were just bought because they'll buy your car whether or not you buy one of theirs. And who are they selling those vehicles to? All the local dealers. So if Highroad can come in and provide a marketplace for the sellers to come in and get a competitive offer from those same dealers, those independent dealers or other franchise dealers on those older, higher mileage vehicles or younger, lower mileage vehicles, we're going to be drinking a milkshake as CarMax and some of the Carvana and some of these other auction houses that are buying vehicles from the public just to go around and wholesale to the dealer. We're kind of positioning ourselves in the middle there, and there seems to be a really big demand for sellers to want to sell their vehicle. We're finding stats that say that since COVID, the amount of sellers selling to dealers has tripled, and that the way that most sellers are finding their way into the dealerships is through the instant cash offer process, ICOs, through CarMax, Carvana, Kelly Blue Book, those different things. And I'm not saying we're coming after CarMax by any means. Like they still have a robust wholesale experience, but just to understand that they're buying so many vehicles from the public that never make it to their retail lot and then selling to local dealerships just shows that there's an opportunity for those sellers to potentially sell their vehicle for more money, because CarMax is making a profit there, and they're making a profit when they buy it from the seller, and they're making a profit when they sell it to the dealer on a sell fee or a buy fee. And so we imagine that the individual independent dealer or local dealer will pay more. And so we want to invite local dealers that want to buy vehicles into our marketplace. So we have access, unique local sellers all across the country that are coming into our ecosystem that want to sell their vehicle. And when we're able to reach out to them, we're finding that within a 90-day period, 50% of the people that are coming onto our site, the VIN number is changing, registration is changing ownership. So we're seeing a lot of high interest in wanting to sell vehicles.
I think that's really interesting because everyone's looking for the magic bullet, right? Everyone's looking for like, how do I get the right opportunity? But the fact that you're offering a service of aggregation, right? Of, hey, we're going to take this of all these people that might be searching. And then if a dealer is wanting to do that, right, they take a choice of like getting those opportunities. It is now based on.
Well,
like,
what a dealer do is they come into our marketplace, they can see the vehicles that are for sale, and they can see who the highest instant cash offer is. And they can appraise the vehicle. And if they're saying, oh, I'd offer more money, they click a button, they offer a higher, they offer the amount they want to offer. And that goes immediately to the seller in a text message saying, hey, you got this much on offer for this much for your vehicle. Would you like to talk to that seller or to that buyer, to the dealer? And if they respond affirmative that yes, that's what they would like to do, bang, you're going to get all of their information about who they are and where, how to contact them, and they're going to find out all about you. But we protect that customer, that seller's data and just give you the vehicle information data just to see where you are at on the vehicle. And if you're a contender and the seller says they want to talk to you, you're going to be able to talk to that seller right away. And the best part is it doesn't cost any money until you buy the vehicle, and then it's just a simple buy fee. So it's very easy to use. It's vehicles that are in your market that you can't find anywhere else, and they're sellers that haven't yet entered the private seller space. So the competition for that is a lot. It's there's less people in this space right now.
Sure, you're trying to get them before they go listed everywhere to where it creates more noise and chaos.
And if we find a dealer group that's in a certain DMA that says, listen, we'll take every lead that you have that comes in through this DMA, and we're going to reach out to them, making market-based offers, and we want to give them a really good experience and safe, easy, and convenient way to buy their car, guess what we want to do? We want to make that partnership. We want to start feeding that dealership these leads and showing sellers that, look, we've matched you with a local dealer that wants to earn your business and is going to treat you right. And so we're looking for dealerships that buy cars.
No, I think that's fantastic, right? Because it's, again, validation through partnership, right? And giving them the opportunity, if they so want it, for the ones that want to embrace moving forward, right? It's not about talking about it. It's about actually doing it. So I think that that's fantastic that we're getting to that point in the industry where it's like now we're looking at solutions of how do we get where we want to be rather than finding problems, right? And so I think it's great to have one out there that is, hey, we have these ability to bring these people to you. What you do with them is obviously based on your, what you're going to do, but there's no more excuses of I can't find stuff, right? There's now solutions to find opportunities everywhere. It's just what you want to do with them.
We've done 68,000 offers so far. The average age of vehicles in our marketplace is a 2019, and average miles is about 65,000 miles. So, I mean, it's perfect types of vehicles coming in from sellers all over the place.
No, I agree. Well, you guys, as we always try to do when we're on Street Smarts, is we want to give you real actionable insights, right? So today we're talking about some best practices, things to think about. Maybe we challenged you. Maybe you knew some of this. I was just doing a training this morning, and I was talking about like every time that I do a training, a podcast, everything else is we want you to learn one thing new. And if you didn't learn anything new, maybe you relearned something you did know, but how you can use it in a different way, right? Because that's still learning. And that's
comments. If you have a different opinion on anything that we're talking about, throw it in there. I want to learn too, and it's great to be able to collaborate like this, Darrell. It's really great.
For sure. And guys, as you guys watch this, we'll have this edited up. It'll go out. And as you guys watch this, guys, and this will probably make David laugh, but I want you guys to share insights. I want you guys to share comments, like it, repost it, subscribe. But more importantly, I want all the trolls to tell us where we're wrong and what we're doing wrong and how they could do it better. Even the trolls that say that they do that and they have no idea what they're doing. I want those comments too. Why? It's a form of flattery for you to take all that time to tell me what I'm doing wrong. So I'll take all the flattery.
There might be some truth. There might be some truth inside of what they say.
Sure.
And it just veiled in their protective selves coming out publicly speaking, and it may just come across as mean or critical. but there can be some lessons there too. So I invite that.
That's right, guys. Like when you guys tell us,
welcome.
when we do something wrong or we said something wrong, you correct us. That's what it's about, guys. If we learn and understand, guys, I don't know everything. I know a little bit about a little. And if I can get better every day, that's what I go to do as well, right? Is to take what I can and help other people. So we take the bad, the good, the indifferent. But when you guys watch this, please make sure that you guys share and repost this, because that's how we get things out there. Not to mention that's obviously a compliment as you guys share it. But more importantly is if we can help one person with anything we talk about get better in business, better in life, then let's do that together. And remember, if you want to win, you got to surround yourself with winners. And I don't know who could have said it better than T-Pain, Ludacris, and my good friend over there, DJ Wright. And it sounds just like this.
Yeah, all I do is win, win, win. No matter what, money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up.
Thank you guys for coming today.
And they stay down, and they stay down.